the browser in Studio One 3. Now, this is another area that may not be the most exciting thing to talk about, but when we're working on our music production and mixing and whatever else, having a firm understanding of the features and functionality of the browser can really help speed up our workflow. And I think if you decide to go ahead and check out the video, you'll pick up some things that you'll be glad that you stuck around for. And so with that, let's go ahead and get into some of the functions of the browser and how we can make better use of it to increase our workflow. Now, the browser is going to allow us to access all VST instruments, effects, loops, files on your computer, the pool, where all of your audio files are stored that are currently used in your song, and a lot more. And we can access the browser by hitting F5 on our keyboard, so I can toggle that on and off by F5. We also, in the bottom right hand corner, can click the Browse button to bring it up as well. Within the browser, besides the Home tab, there are 6 other tabs available to us, and we can access these by clicking up above or by using the hotkeys. So F6 will give us our instruments, F7 the effects, F8 the loops, F9 files, and F10 the pool. As far as I'm aware, there's not a function key for the cloud, but maybe I'm just missing that. If so, leave a comment below for the rest of us to know. So I'll F6 and come back to the instruments. And within each tab, first and foremost, we want to find what we're looking for by using the browser. We have a search function, and we can access that by clicking this magnifying glass here, and it's available within each tab. Keep in mind, though, that when we use the search feature within these tabs, it is going to be specific for that tab and search for the item, or search among the items within that tab. But with the home page here, if we use this search feature here, then it's going to search everything. So this is kind of a more broad search when we perform it within the home tab. And we can just close that by clicking again on the magnifying glass. Another thing to keep in mind when using the search feature, if we were to, say, come to the loops here and have a specific folder selected and then use the search feature, if I, say, type in bass, then it's going to return searches that are within that folder that we have selected. And maybe this isn't a good example because we can't see kind of the directory above this. If I close out of there, but we could see it that we're selected the electro pop here. If I come to the classical and type in bass, let's see what sort of results we get here. More loops. But you can see that we are searching within this classical loops, classical here, and it shows you the directory that you're in. So that's just something else to keep in mind, that you can hone in your search by selecting a specific folder and searching within that folder. If we access the Files tab by pressing F9, and say I've got a, let me come to my Sounds and Samples folder, and let's search this particular folder, and I put in bass. Now we have our results. I've got 372 files. Another feature that we have is that we can right-click on a file that shows up in this search result and choose to show in context. And in this way, we're going to see the directory of where that file is located in. And we can see it's in one shots of samples, battery, for factory library, native instruments. We could also right-click and show in Explorer. So if we want to access the Windows Explorer or the Finder on the Mac and access that file directly, we can do it that way as well. Now let's take a look at some of the sort by options, and we'll come to the instrument tabs. Up at the very top we have sort by, and actually by default when you're opening the browser in a new song, the vendor is going to be selected, and we have a group of folders here by vendor, and then we can search. We have personas. We can open up the personas folder and see what we have there, native instruments. We can also choose flat, which is going to display our instruments alphabetically. Then we have folder, which is going to give us a list of alphabetical folders based on type. So sampler, synth, these are in alphabetical order. Now we do have these loose instruments because we can come in and do management, and we're going to cover this in part 2, and add these to folders by type so that we won't see these. What our result will be is a alphabetical list of folders with all of our instruments contained within those to help us search for them that way. Then we're back to vendor, and then we have type, which is going to show us the type, rewire, VST2, VST3, etc. And let's just come back to the vendor. Once we've found an instrument that we'd like to use, we can simply click, hold, and drag it into the arrange view. Studio One will then create an instrument track here, which is where we can record all of our MIDI information to play back and trigger this instrument. If we'd like to change patches, of course we can do that here, but we could also, within the browser, click and drag a patch in. That is, if we're on the right instrument. I've got a Mai Tai, so I can then click and drag that in and change the patch. If you are someone who does not like to use the mouse when you're auditioning your sounds, we can use our up and down arrow keys to navigate our patches, and then just press enter, and then that will load in. We could also load our instruments by using a specific patch as well. So if I expand out the Mojito folder and then come to a patch, I can drag this Dirty Mole in, and it will load the Mojito with that patch preloaded. If we were to attempt to bring in an instrument, let's say I'll try to bring this Presence in and put it on a instrument track that already has a VST instrument loaded, then we're going to get a little pop-up window here that wants to know if you want to replace it, keep the instrument, but add the Presence onto this track, or combine. So we can choose to replace, and now we have the Presence, and the Mai Tai is completely gone. If I bring in this Mojito and get this pop-up window again, we can choose to keep, and the Mojito 2 is loaded, and the original one is still here, but it doesn't have an instrument track assigned to it. And the last one here is, if we drag on and combine, then we create a multi-instrument, and that's a bit beyond the scope of this video, but just know that that's what you're gonna get if you choose to combine. Let's move on to the next tab, Effects. I'm gonna press F7 to access that. And basically, we're not gonna spend too much time here because this functions in a similar way to instruments. And we've got our sort by feature up at the top. We've got our search function. One extra thing to take note of in the search function with the effects tab is that we can actually search by type. So if I'm looking for a reverb, I could type in reverb, and then we'll be shown several results here. So not only searching by a specific name for the device, we can type in a general function of the effect, and then have a resulting several of these here that we can choose from. A couple other methods to be aware of when we're working with our effects and loading those into our song is that if I F3 and bring up the console, we can load our effects onto channels within the console. So if I click this mix verb and drag that onto our Mojito here, then that's going to load onto this channel. So if I expand out this panel, we can see that within our inserts here, we have that mix verb. We can also load, let's see, let's get rid of the search and bring in an analog delay, and I'm going to put this on the sends. So when we do that, we actually create an effects channel here with that effect preloaded. And we can also drag in an effect into an empty area within the console, and we'll create an effects channel that way as well with that auto filter loaded. And we can replace any effect within the console by, say I'll take this analog delay. If I place that on top of the auto filter, then we're going to replace that auto filter. If we take this bit crusher, we can bring that in below or above, and we're not replacing, but we're then adding it to the inserts. So we have that option available to us as well. And of course we can click and hold and change the order of our inserts within the console and this panel here, whether we're on the effects channel or an audio channel or an instrument channel. And as we saw with loading patches with the instruments, we can, if I double click and open up the bit crusher, we can come over to the browser and grab a preset and load this into the instrument and change that way. And again, if you're someone that prefers to just use the keyboard and not grab the mouse too much, we can use our up-down arrows to choose a different preset, hit enter, and then change that way as well. And with that, I think we'll conclude part 1 of working with the browser in Studio One 3. Look out for part 2 as well. We're going to be covering some more important features like plugin management, sound sets, working with the pool, and a lot more.